What happens when the need for speed costs more than anyone ever expected? Street Outlaws, once a hit show on the Discovery Channel that turned backstreet racing into primetime entertainment, has suddenly come to a screeching halt. The very show that took the world of illegal street racing and put it on television is now mired in lawsuits, grief, and regret. In 2022, tragedy struck when driver Ryan Fellows lost his life in a fiery crash while filming. His family filed a lawsuit, claiming that producers had ignored clear safety warnings before the accident. Since that heartbreaking event, more stories have emerged, involving drivers struggling with the law, battling substance abuse, and dealing with the relentless pressure that comes with being a part of a high-stakes show. Not too long ago, an even more shocking discovery led to the show's total shutdown. What could it be? Let's uncover the truth. This is the world that Street Outlaws created, where the thrills of street racing were brought to television, captivating viewers with intense races and adrenaline-fueled drama. Street racing itself is not a new concept. It's something that has been around since the very invention of the automobile. The idea of two drivers racing head-to-head on a street, competing to see who's the fastest, is something that has fascinated car enthusiasts for generations. In fact, it's something that even I've participated in, more times than I care to admit. But the difference now is that Street Outlaws brought back the raw energy and excitement that fans of street racing in past decades spent over time. It gave us the personalities, the cars, and the real-life drama that made it so appealing. Sure, racing is exhilarating, but what truly captivates people within the motorsport world are two things: the driver and the car. Street Outlaws succeeded because it focused on both. Unlike the polished, high-tech machines of modern-day professional racing, the cars on Street Outlaws felt accessible. They were not all the latest 2019 Camaros with the same engine under the hood, nor were they the high-priced supercars that most people could never dream of owning. These were cars that anyone with a passion for speed could relate to. They were normal cars, made extraordinary by the people behind the wheel. Two things worked in Street Outlaws' favor. The show brought attention to the issue of street racing, and perhaps more importantly, it motivated people to build their own fast cars. Fans from all over the country flocked to Facebook and online message boards, sharing their thoughts and opinions on the good and bad sides of the show. It sparked conversations, and people kept watching. The excitement in those early seasons encouraged viewers to start working on their own cars, inspired to create something that could stand up to the cars seen on television. CarCraft, a well-known magazine in the automotive community, supported the love for building fast machines, but took a hard stance on the dangers of racing on public roads. While the magazine appreciated the cars and the adrenaline, it couldn't condone illegal street racing. Street Outlaws, however, made that issue impossible to ignore, showcasing the risks of street racing, but also showing how those risks could be, and often were, embraced by the racers themselves. The show's roots run deep in Oklahoma City, where it all began. Street Outlaws first aired on June 10, 2013, on the Discovery Channel. Pilgrim Studios brought the show to life, giving viewers a glimpse into the dangerous world of underground street racing. What set Street Outlaws apart from other shows was its raw authenticity. It wasn't just about cars racing down an empty road. It was about the people behind the wheel. The racers who poured their time, money, and hearts into their vehicles, who raced at night under the constant threat of police interference. The show followed the 405 crew, named after the area code of Oklahoma City, who claimed to have the fastest cars in the country. They competed on the top 10 list, a ranking system where each racer held a spot based on how fast they were. To move up the list, racers had to challenge the driver above them and win a race on an empty street. The winner moved up, the loser dropped down, and sometimes someone new would take a spot. It was an intense system with real-world consequences. The races took place mostly at night, and the show captured everything, from the testing and tweaking of car setups to the moments of tension and camaraderie between the racers. There was always the threat of the police showing up, and races from other cities would often show up to prove they had the skills to take on the 405 crew. Over the course of 15 seasons, Street Outlaws depicted how much the racers were willing to risk money, freedom, and even their lives to stay on top. At the heart of Street Outlaws was Justin Shearer, better known as Big Chief. Big Chief wasn't just a driver, he was the mastermind behind the races, the person who organized everything and kept the crew together. He had been involved in racing since he was 9 years old, watching cars speed down Route 66, and he drove his own car, a Pontiac Le Mans called the Crow. He was a respected figure in the racing world, but not without his rivalries. Sean Ellington, known as Murder Nova, drove a 1969 Chevy Nova. For over 3 years, he held the King of the Streets title before losing it to Doc and then to Daddy Dave. With help from Big Chief and Chuck, Murder Nova kept tweaking his setup, trying to get back to the top. Daddy Dave, whose real name was David Comstock, drove a 1996 GMC Sonoma S10 called Goliath. He had been racing for over 20 years and had been through numerous crashes, but always came back stronger. Doc, driving a 1970 Chevy Monte Carlo named the Street Beast, once reached number 1 before dropping down to number 2. He never stopped fighting to get his spot back. Other racers like Monza, Chuck, Spanish Chuck, Farm Truck, and AZN each had their own quirks and stories, each contributing to the show's dynamic and unpredictable nature. As the show progressed, more racers joined the crew: Kamikaze, Reaper, Varley, and Boosted GT, to name a few. These racers weren't actors. They were real people who lived for racing. They were willing to risk everything for the glory of winning, or even just maintaining their spot. Street Outlaws became a phenomenon, attracting millions of viewers who tuned in week after week to watch the races and get a glimpse of the personalities behind the wheel. The show also led to several spin-offs, including Fastest in America, but the original remained focused on Oklahoma City and the tight-knit group of racers who built their cars and their lives around their love for speed. But even with all of its success, Street Outlaws faced difficulties over the years. The show may have started as a raw, authentic look at the world of street racing, but as it grew, it became a symbol of the very thing that had once been illegal: the celebration of racing on public roads. The success of the show led to rising tensions, lawsuits, and eventually a heartbreaking tragedy that caused a massive shift in its future. While the adrenaline-pumping races and larger-than-life characters initially captured the hearts of viewers, the cost of this high-stakes world proved to be greater than anyone had anticipated. Ryan Fellow's death in 2022 was a sobering reminder of the dangers involved in this sport, and his family's lawsuit raised serious questions about the responsibility of producers in ensuring safety. As more stories of struggles with the law, substance abuse, and the intense pressure of being a Street Outlaws racer came to light, the show's future began to look uncertain. The scandal that unfolded after the loss of Ryan Fellows was just the beginning, and now the ultimate question remains: what caused the final shutdown of Street Outlaws? Stay tuned to find out. Street Outlaws, a show that once brought the thrill of underground drag racing to the living rooms of millions, has become the focus of more than just racing excitement. From its explosive start on the Discovery Channel to its heartbreaking end, the show's story has been marred by tragedy, lawsuits, and regrets that no one could have expected. Over the years, the show has lost several of its stars and crew members, people who weren't just part of a reality TV show, but were part of a tight-knit family, bonded by their love for racing and their commitment to the sport. Each loss left a hole that is still felt today, and each tragedy continues to remind everyone involved that street racing is not just about the cars. It's about the people who risk everything to be part of it. One of the first racers to be remembered in the Street Outlaws legacy is Tyler "Flip" Pretty. Born and raised in Yukon, Oklahoma, Flip was a beloved member of the crew, known for driving his Chevy El Camino. His passing on May 28, 2013, at just 31 years old, was a shock to his friends, family, and fans. His death came just before the show premiered, leaving many to mourn the loss of someone who had been a foundational part of the show. Flip had helped form the 405 crew, a group that became the heart and soul of the show. His absence left an emotional mark on everyone who had worked with him, and his memory continues to be honored by those who knew him best. His death was a painful reminder of the risks involved in street racing, risks that would sadly continue to claim more lives in the years to come. The next significant loss came in 2020, when Christopher "Kentucky" Ellis, known for his role as a mechanic and his ability to make people laugh, passed away at the age of 39. Kentucky had been a cornerstone of the Street Outlaws crew, helping maintain the cars that made the races possible. His passing, which came after he had reportedly taken alcohol, odal, and other substances, underscored the hidden struggles that many of the racers faced behind the scenes. Kentucky's family and friends raised money to support his loved ones, but his loss still hangs heavy in the hearts of those who knew him. For many, his death was a reminder that while Street Outlaws was all about fast cars and high stakes, it was also about the personal battles that racers, mechanics, and crew members were fighting off camera. In 2022, the racing community was shaken once again by the tragic passing of Wayne Smozanek from Jupiter, Florida. Known for his bright Ford Probe Tropical Thunder, Wayne had been a staple of the No Prep King series. Before joining the street racing world, Wayne had driven monster trucks, and his love for motorsports ran deep. His passing from complications related to COVID-19 was a devastating blow. Wayne's death was felt throughout the racing community, and his team continued to race in his name during No Prep Kings Season 5, ensuring that his legacy lived on in the sport he loved. His wife, Wendy, shared their grief with the world, thanking fans for their support. His death marked another chapter in the ongoing tragedies that seemed to plague the show. But perhaps the most shocking and heartbreaking loss came in August 2022, when Ryan Fellows, a 41-year-old driver, tragically died during a race for Street Outlaws, fastest in America near Las Vegas. Ryan, known for his gold Nissan 240Z, lost control of his car, which caught fire upon impact. The crew was unable to reach him in time to save him. Ryan had appeared in Season 3 of Street Outlaws and had been a familiar face for many fans. He was a husband, a father, and a passionate racer who had dedicated his life to the sport. His death hit the Street Outlaws family hard, bringing grief not only to his family, but also to those who had worked closely with him on the show. His loss sparked an outpouring of tributes and sympathy from both his friends and fans, many of whom had watched him race and had come to know him through the show. Then came the loss of Nathan Shaldock, known as Cali Nate, who passed away in April 2024 during a race in Eagle Pass, Texas. Nate's Mustang, My Little Pony, crashed after hitting a rough patch, and despite being rushed to the hospital, he did not survive. Nate, who had started racing at the age of 15, was remembered for his courage, his passion for racing, and his commitment to his craft. His girlfriend, Courtney Paulshock, shared heartfelt tributes to him after his passing, speaking of how much she loved him and how proud she was of the man he had become. Nate's loss was deeply felt by the street racing community, with many racers sending messages of support and remembrance. He passed away doing what he loved most, and for those who knew him, that made his death all the more tragic. The most recent tragedy came in June 2024, when Lizzie Musey, a rising star in the racing world, passed away at the age of 33 after a long battle with stage 4 breast cancer. Lizzie had made history as the first woman to win a Pro Nitrous event and later a No Prep Kings event. She had become a role model for many young racers, proving that women could succeed in a male-dominated sport. Lizzie had been diagnosed with breast cancer in April 2023, and she bravely shared her treatment journey with her fans. Her death was a devastating blow not only to her family and friends, but also to the racing community that had come to admire her. Her father, Pat Musey, announced her passing, and the racing world mourned the loss of someone who had inspired so many. Season 6 of No Prep Kings set to air in October 2025, will honor her life and legacy, ensuring that she will not be forgotten. These losses are not just statistics. They represent the real, human costs of street racing. The Street Outlaws family has faced tragedy after tragedy, and each loss has left an indelible mark on the show and its fans. These racers were not just contestants on a reality TV show. They were people with families, dreams, and passions. The dangers of street racing are real, and the losses that have occurred over the years serve as a reminder that the price of speed and fame can sometimes be too high. Despite these heart-wrenching losses, Street Outlaws continued to be a driving force in the world of motorsports television. But as the years went on, the show began to face increasingly difficult challenges. Legal troubles, growing accusations of fakeness, and controversies surrounding its cast members started to overshadow the high-speed action that had once made it so popular. With each new scandal, the show's reputation began to suffer, and its fan base started to shrink. In 2023, the family of Ryan Fellows filed a lawsuit against Warner Bros. Discovery and Lionsgate, claiming that producers had allowed races to take place on unsafe, deteriorating roads where previous accidents had already occurred. The case is still open, and it highlights the ongoing tension between the show's producers and the families of the racers who were impacted by the dangers of the sport. This lawsuit was not the first time the show had been involved in legal issues. In 2018, Chad and Jenny Larkin filed a lawsuit after a violent fight during filming in Memphis. The Larkins alleged that producers had encouraged the fight for dramatic effect, failed to intervene, and continued recording while Chad was injured. This incident brought to light the show's willingness to sacrifice safety for the sake of drama, a pattern that would continue to haunt Street Outlaws in the years that followed. The accusations of fakeness also took their toll. Viewers began to question whether the races were staged, as many of the events seemed too perfectly arranged to be real. Some fans grew disillusioned with the show, choosing to watch unscripted street races online instead. Even the opening sequence, which depicted police breaking up a race, was later revealed to be a planned prank. Behind the scenes, it was discovered that producers worked with local police departments to secure filming locations, which made it clear that much of the show's content was pre-arranged. This made it harder for fans to believe that the races were truly underground or dangerous, and it contributed to a growing sense of distrust. As the show's credibility began to wane, it also faced increasing competition. The focus on male rivalries, while appealing to many, left little room for more diverse stories or stronger female characters. The absence of fully developed female racers on the show was a glaring issue. Tina, one of the few women on the show, was portrayed as a tomboy who could handle herself around cars, but her role was limited to a stereotype. This lack of depth in character development ultimately made the show feel one-dimensional and repetitive. The list of criminal activities connected to the show only made matters worse. Cast members like Ronnie Pollard, who was involved in a $500,000 engine theft, and Israel Izzy Valenzuela, who was convicted after a race killed 2 bystanders, painted a darker picture of Street Outlaws than what was seen on screen. J.J. DeBoss, a key figure in the show, had spent time in prison before joining the cast and was later faced with new charges in 2024. The show's reputation suffered further when Big Chief, one of the most recognizable stars of Street Outlaws, left the show after disagreements over pay and the direction of the show. His exit sparked division among fans, many of whom stopped watching the show once he was gone. By 2025, Street Outlaws had become a shadow of its former self. The once thriving franchise had seen its ratings plummet and its audience had dwindled. Warner Bros.' merger with Discovery, along with budget cuts and strikes, led to the cancellation of No Prep Kings in 2025. The decline in viewership was stark. What once boasted 500,000 live TV viewers now barely attracted 9,000 live viewers on YouTube. Fans had turned to online platforms for updates, leaving the show's production and the racers who relied on it for their livelihood in a precarious position. The National Hot Rod Association eventually revoked the licenses of racers linked to Street Outlaws to protect its public image, further tarnishing the show's reputation. Derek Travis, a racer featured on the show, lost his job as a result. The show's fall from grace highlighted how the pursuit of fame, the dangers of street racing, and poor decisions can leave a lasting impact on both the people involved and the audience that once loved the show. Street Outlaws went from being a cultural phenomenon to a cautionary tale of how fame, danger, and poor decisions can take their toll. While the events still draw small crowds, the once glamorous television version of the show has faded into obscurity. What remains is the memory of how it once revived interest in drag racing, now overshadowed by the tragedies, lawsuits, and lost trust that followed. The cancellation of the remaining season of Street Outlaws for 2025 came as a sudden shock to the drag racing world. Speed Promotions and Racing, the group behind the hit shows Street Outlaws, No Prep Kings, and the Outlaws touring series, had brought what seemed like an unstoppable momentum in modern drag racing to an abrupt halt. The announcement sent ripples through the racing community, leaving fans heartbroken, and the racers who gave their time and energy to the sport feeling uncertain about what came next. Paige Coughlin, a 24-year-old rising star in the drag racing world, took to social media just hours after the news broke, sharing her emotions with fans who had supported her since her debut in the Outlaw Racing series. Paige, the daughter of Troy Coughlin Sr., a former National Hot Rod Association Pro Mod World Champion, comes from a family with a rich legacy in the world of drag racing. Yet despite being part of such a renowned lineage, Paige was determined to forge her own path in the world of motorsports. She began her racing career in a way that was distinctly her own, carving out her identity as a racer, separate from her family's history. But as the news of the cancellation spread, Paige chose not to focus on the negative. Instead, she shared a message of gratitude and optimism. In her video, Paige said, "Those last two races at US 131 and Maple Grove have been officially canceled. I just wanted to say that we are not done racing yet, and I want to thank every fan who cheered for me and Team Golden Child over the past 3 years since I debuted in the Outlaw Racing series. I've had such a blast. Meeting all of you has just been a surreal experience." Her words reflected the spirit of the racing community, a spirit of resilience and hope in the face of adversity. For Paige, the Outlaws series may not have lasted as long as No Prep Kings, but it was a dream come true. As a child, she had watched the racers she later competed against. She had admired them, aspired to be like them, and now she was among them. "I will never forget it," she said. "This Camaro has taught me so much about driving and will always have a special place in my heart. Thank you to all the drivers who welcomed me with open arms. Competing with you was actually a dream come true." A few years earlier, Paige had been on the typical path set by her family, competing in National Hot Rod Association events and bracket racing. But everything changed when she went to National Trail Raceway to watch No Prep Kings race. That day ignited a fire in her, leading her to make the decision to leave behind the controlled world of NHRA competition for the uncharted territory of No Prep events. She purchased a 1992 Camaro, naming it Golden Child, and started down a road that was hers alone to travel. Paige's decision to carve out her own path was a bold one. "I really like doing my own thing," she explained in a 24-hour interview with Drag Illustrated. "I feel like I have to branch out. I am still a Coughlin, but I get to do it my way and make a name for Paige instead of being Troy's daughter or TJ's little sister." Her path was far from easy, but it was the one she chose, and it led to quick success. In 2023, Paige joined the Futures class, and, in only her 4th race, won at Bowling Green. This victory propelled her into the Invitational, where she proved she was ready for the big stage. By the end of her first full season in 2024, she had broken into the top 10 in points, made it to the playoff final in Texas, and earned a reputation as one of the sport's strongest young racers. But despite these incredible achievements, the cancellation of the rest of the season came as a blow to her and many others in the racing community. Paige, however, kept her head high, reminding her fans that this was not the end of her journey. "We are still working on a new car," she said, "and we are far from done with racing." Her message was one of hope, reassuring everyone that Team Golden Child was still in the game and ready to keep pushing forward. Her words were comforting to those who needed a glimmer of optimism in the face of the show's cancellation. The end of speed promotions and racing was certainly a loss, but for Paige, it was also an opportunity to explore a new path in the racing world. Racing series may come to an end, but the drivers, teams, and fans who helped make them special are far from gone. Paige's steady attitude and determination reflected the spirit that runs deep in the drag racing community, a spirit not shaped by the cancellation of a season, but by a love for the sport and a passion for pushing the limits. Paige shares that drive with her fiancé, Johnny Tolosano, a racer and engine builder who also manages her team. Johnny's business, J&J Racing Engines, has grown alongside their racing career. Together, they've built a life centered around their shared love for racing. Paige handles the bookkeeping during the week, while Johnny leads the team at the track on weekends. Their story mirrors the same family-centered, racer-driven spirit that gave Street Outlaws its early success. The cancellation of the season marks the end of an era for Street Outlaws and the world of no-prep drag racing that the show helped elevate. While Paige and others like her carry on racing, the events have become a bittersweet memory. The show once brought drag racing to new audiences, elevating it to a place of prominence in American motorsports. It showcased not just the thrill of the race, but the passion and commitment of the racers who put everything on the line. It was a sport for the people, not just for the elite, and the races were filled with real-life drama, powerful machines, and larger-than-life personalities. From the moment the first Street Outlaws episode aired on June 10, 2013, the series transformed the way we think about street racing. It became one of the longest-running shows about cars and motorsports, and it created a cultural shift in how people viewed drag racing. The show's legacy expanded with spin-offs like Street Outlaws, New Orleans in 2016, featuring Kai Kelly, and Memphis Street Outlaws in 2018 with JJ Day Boss. It also gave rise to No Prep Kings, which was introduced in 2017 and quickly became a fan favorite. The Street Outlaws franchise had a massive impact on drag racing culture. It gave rise to new stars like Justin Big Chief Shearer, Sean Murder Nova Ellington, and David Daddy Dave Comstock. The show highlighted the struggles and triumphs of the racing community, showing the intense dedication required to compete in this dangerous sport. It wasn't just about speed, it was about the people, the machines, and the community that came together over a shared love for racing. The show's legacy is undeniable. It introduced fans to the real-world dangers and excitement of street racing, while also showing the personal lives and struggles of the racers. The world of street racing was no longer hidden in the shadows. It was brought to primetime television, where millions could tune in every week to watch the racers fight for the top spot on the top 10 list. From the races themselves to the tense rivalries, the show captured the essence of drag racing: raw, real, and full of heart. But like all things, the show's time in the spotlight has come to an end. The controversies, legal issues, and behind-the-scenes drama have taken their toll, and now the cancellation of the season marks the close of one chapter. Yet for drivers like Paige Coughlin and the racing community that supported Street Outlaws, the story is far from over. While the show may no longer be airing on television, the passion and dedication to racing will continue to live on in new forms. Paige's journey, like many others, is just beginning. She may not be competing on television screens in 2026, but the spirit of racing still runs deep in her. In the end, it's clear that the Street Outlaws franchise will always be remembered for its role in bringing the world of street racing into the public eye. Its influence can still be felt today in the many racers who came up through its ranks, like Paige, and in the fans who continue to support the sport. Do you think Street Outlaws will ever return in a new form? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Check out the next video on your screen and stay tuned for more updates.